We're back. This is Dear Woke Christian, the podcast, and this is another special edition of Deconstructing Deconstruction. So on the last episode, I had Jen and Rob. We were talking about our deconstructing deconstruction journey, and I did not get my sister April on. So we had to do it. So we got to get April in here because she has such a wonderful story. So first of all, if you don't mind, everybody, please bow your heads and please go to April Chapman's YouTube channel, which is called The Standard of Truth YouTube. I'm going to pin that in the comments in a moment. Please go by and check her out. Please make sure that you like, share, and subscribe, all those good things as it relates to April's channel. And first, April, welcome to the channel.
Hey, big bro, how are you? Hey, everybody.
Hey,
thank you for having me. Actually, my channel name is still April Chapman. The
Oh,
name
it
of
is
the
still
show
April Chapman.
is The Standard of Truth podcast.
Gotcha. I'm going to make that. I will make sure I change that.
Well, I didn't want to change it. You know, I was just like, we'll just keep it that way.
I got you.
It's easy for people to remember my name.
Yes. I love it. I love it. So I'll make sure I put that on there as well. All right, April. So you had a chance to hear Jen and Rob's conversation. We were talking about our deconstructing from Destiny Metropolitan Worship Church here in Marietta, Georgia. You have a very similar story. Where were you and where did you go to church?
Well, kind of just like you and Jen, I got sucked in right while I was in college. Freshman year, I was invited. You know, you come freshman year to college, and the religious kids are like, "Oh, okay, well, we're going to church on Sunday." And I did not come to college to find the Lord or to be religious or anything like that. So what happened was I was dating this guy, and he
Don't
was
be blaming it on him. It ain't his fault.
Huh?
It ain't his fault. Don't be blaming it on that man.
His fault. Absolutely, it was, and I'm gonna tell you why. It was his fault because he, you know, obviously we were attracted to one another, but then he was like, "Oh, okay, well, you know, we're gonna go to church tomorrow," and I was like, "Ooh, church!" I was like, "Ooh, it's kind of early in the semester to be getting a little serious and going to church," but I was like, "Okay, I guess." He was like, "No, this church is not like church that you are used to." He was like, "You have to come to this church," and I was like, "All right, so what church is it?" And he goes, "It's New Birth Missionary Baptist Church." And I'm like, okay. Like, he was expecting me to give like an excited reaction, but I had never heard of New Birth. And he was shocked.
I hadn't either.
Right. I you know, I'm 18. I don't watch TBN. So I don't know what a New Birth is. I didn't know who Bishop Long was. So he was like, rah, like, "Oh, you must come." He was like, "You don't understand. You ain't never been to a church like this." And I was like, I mean, yeah. I was like, okay, well, what? Is it around the corner? He was like, "Oh, no. This church has like 17,000 members and it's way on the east side of town." And I was like, okay, well, how are we going to get there? Because I don't have a car and neither do you. And that's when he goes, "Oh, you don't have to worry. They send the shuttle to the back gate to pick up all the college students." And I was like, okay, well, at least I don't have to worry about a ride. And he was like, you know, "Don't worry about it. Just be here at this time and I will be at the back gate to meet you." And so that's how I got sucked in to New Birth, to answer the question.
So just for those people who don't know, if you don't live here in Atlanta, Morehouse College, my alma mater, and Spelman College, April's alma mater, were literally a parking lot apart. They were literally just across the street from one another. And the back gate was really like it was a meeting place. Like when we couldn't come on campus, we would meet you at the back gate. And when you had to be back at school at a certain time, we would drop you off at the back gate. It was like the communal place.
Like,
nobody goes to the front gate.
The front of the school looks like, because the back gate was the beginning of everything. I mean, everything. You go to the club, the shuttle gonna drop you off at the back gate. You go to church, the same different shuttle. Right.
Different shuttle, maybe same bus driver though.
It might be. It was either you going to the warehouse or the church house. The warehouse.
Stop it.
Right. I don't know if you remember the warehouse.
I do remember the warehouse. I do. So if you ever hear us mentioning the back gate as it relates to Spelman and Morehouse. It's just kind of like the central spot that no, I would go through the front gate of Spelman because I had class at Clark,
Clark.
which
Oh,
was
okay.
which was across from Spelman. So I would
Clark.
go through there, and my actual major was at your school. So I would go through that front gate to go to the education building. So I mean,
Got
but that's
it.
just something. So that was my story. All right, so you got snookered into going to New Birth. Now tell people like what is you said is missionary Baptist, but it really wasn't though, was it? It
Well,
wasn't.
back then, New Birth identified denominationally as missionary Baptist.
Okay.
But by the time I got there, they had locked arms with the full gospel
Mm-hmm.
denomination started by Bishop Paul Morton. So it was missionary Baptist, but kind of full gospel-ish, which brought in a whole new set of problems. So, but on paper, it was definitely missionary Baptist,
Mm-hmm.
but doctrinally and just the way the church moved and functioned, it was more full gospel word of faith. But I would say probably 70%, no, I'll do 60-40, 60% full gospel, 40% word of faith. And that created a new hybrid that was quite attractive to me. Little black girl from the Bronx. We pulled up to the church. I had never seen a church
Never.
this size. I had never seen that many black people congregating on purpose, like maybe at a concert, but not church
Maybe.
on Sunday.
Right.
Everybody was dressed nice cars. I mean, I didn't really know what to do with that. So I was, I'm from New York City. It's like when you go to Rockefeller Center World Trade Center is not there anymore. You're just like, wow. That's
Right.
how I was when I first stepped foot on the New Birth campus.
And I should actually put some pictures up. I mean, she's not overselling it because I mean,
I'm not.
my first interaction with New Birth was actually at a Manpower conference.
Oh yeah.
So Jake's was still not Jake's was not Jake's that y'all know today. So if you're familiar with TD Jakes, is nothing like he is today.
He was up and coming.
Yeah, he was still on the Chitlin circuit, and he was doing "Woman Thou Art Loosed" and Manpower. And he did Manpower at New Birth, and that's actually where I met one of my best friends. I actually met him at New Birth, so that was my first introduction to it. So the same thing, like it was, you don't realize just how big it was. And this was when y'all were on was that Snapfinger?
Snapfinger. Mm-hmm.
It was on Snapfinger. So I mean that was a big edifice then, but the New Birth that most people are familiar with now, that's what 3-4 times bigger than what I was familiar with.
That's New Birth.
That's that new birth.
Right.
I was back on Snapfinger.
New Birth. There's like the old New Birth.
Uh-huh.
Then they called that the chapel. Then they moved
they
into
renovated
the sanctuary right on Snapfinger, and then they sold that property to Cynthia Hale. She's the pastor of that church now, and now they're out on not too far from me in Lithonia, at the cathedral. Yes.
Oh, Chapel Hill Harvester? Or no?
No, not that one.
Okay.
No, New Birth is in Lithonia off of like Evans Mill and Woodrow Road. It's that campus is sprawling way bigger than the Snapfinger property. Yeah.
So, okay. So thank you all for chiming in as my sister and I just kind of go back over our college experiences and church experiences. So you've gotten pulled in, you got pulled into the black excellence. You got pulled into the bourgeoisie, if you will, of black churchianity. And okay, so how long were you there? How long were you at New Birth?
I was at New Birth from 97 to 2005. So that's a pretty long time.
That's a lot of years.
Right. Now, mind you, that whole time I was unconverted. I was not a believer.
Yeah.
But you could not have convinced me otherwise. I just knew I was saved. But it was the brand. I was fully inculcated in the brand of Christianity known as, like you would say, churchianity.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't because I wanted Christ. It wasn't because I even understood what Christ had done for me. If you had asked me what does it mean to be justified by faith, I would have looked at you like you had two heads. I was like, I don't know. I know season, harvest, breakthrough, favor, and increase,
There
but
you go. There you go.
I don't know justification by faith. I didn't know any of that, right? I knew all the churchianity catchphrases, and I was
Come
just
on.
so enamored with the ministry that I just wanted to get plugged in. So I was like, all right, what are my gifts? They got they had an amazing praise dance department. The arts were big there. And so I was like,
Hmm.
well, I dance, so I'm gonna join the praise team. And that was that was Hollywood for me.
Oh
Because
yeah,
we
I
got
know it
to
was.
this is when New Birth was doing Easter service at the Georgia Dome.
Man,
Listen,
I've got to pull up some pictures. I don't think people fully get what we're
they
talking
don't know.
about.
They don't understand.
Okay, hold on. Okay, keep talking. I am going
Right.
to
So
find these pictures because
I
they
was
need to know
dancing on the
this.
praise team during this time when every Easter, Bishop Long would rent out the entire Georgia Dome. This is where the Falcons used to
Hmm.
play. And
Yep. Oh my
Easter
gosh.
service, Resurrection Sunday, would be at the Dome. So I dance on the praise team. I'm
Hmm.
like, oh yes, your church is garbage because
We
y'all don't
ran out the
attract the
dome.
whole state. Like people were coming from miles just to go to Easter service, and
Yes, they
sometimes you
were.
couldn't get in. Like we packed out the dome. That's how intense it was. And so, I'm 18 years old. I don't know the gospel. All I know is this pastor is dynamic. He's telling me what I want to hear. And I am amongst the who's who of Atlanta. If you had a business, you needed to be at New Birth. If you were looking to expand your network of influence, you were at New Birth.
Yes, you were.
Oh, yeah. So
Yes, you
this
were.
is New Birth.
This is
That
new
is the
birth. I was
campus. So that
wow.
building right there is the Family Life Center.
Hmm.
That building got built before the actual sanctuary. And
Oh, sorry
Bishop
about that.
Long at his heyday has so much power that he basically told the county, listen, I need an exit just for us, right?
Yep.
We got a lot of
Yep.
traffic, we got a lot of cars. I need y'all to build a road so that when people get off I-20, they can just cut to the right and take it straight to the birth. And he got what he wanted. So there was just a
Wow.
lot of power. I call it the new birth mystique, right? We had
Yeah,
our own
I like that.
license plates.
It
We
did.
had merch before merch was merch, right?
Yes, you
The
did. Yes,
license
you
plates,
did.
the flags. I mean, it was some of the most gaudy, idolatrous stuff, but you could not tell us that it wasn't for Christ, right? We were convinced we were doing it for the Lord, but we were really doing it because we were enamored with the mystique of just being connected to the ministry.
Yes. Goodness gracious. And I mean, you are not I don't think you're giving full detail. Like they changed the highway. Like not just
Yes.
an exit. They changed the way the highway moved
They did.
so that
They
because of the
rerouted. It
I'm
was
trying
a
to find
whole full construction production that
yes, yes.
they literally widened the interstate, gave them the exit so that, and the police, it was like,
Mhm.
the man had an amazing influence. And I don't, when I don't want people to, the man is dead now, right? So obviously he can't defend himself. And I will still hold fast to the fact that he was a false teacher, right? It is what it is.
It is what it is,
Um,
right? Absolutely.
but at his personality, he really did a lot for the community. And so
Oh
it
yeah.
was difficult for you to be convinced that you're following a wolf because when Southwest DeKalb needed something, the high school that was zoned for that little Decatur, Lithonia area, football team uniforms, say the word, Bishop Long got it.
Yeah, it did.
Is the band is going to play at the Macy's Day Parade. I'm paying the trip for everybody to get there. Y'all parents, y'all don't need to worry. I got this. He would do stuff like that. And so it basically
Like
would pull you in because you're like, what is going on over here at this
mhm.
this church where this man is doing all these things? And so it was very, very attractive to a young, impressionable 18-year-old who's miles away from home, who, I didn't have any family here.
Mhm.
And so when I went back home, all I talked about was New Birth. Like everybody's
Oh
asking me
yeah.
how was school. I was like, oh, school's great, but let me tell you about my
No,
church.
it's about New Birth.
Right. Like I
Look
went
at
back up
this.
there talking about y'all ain't doing this Jesus right. If you're not
Mm-mm.
doing it like this, y'all are just not on that level. So I
Yeah.
came back with this very superior
Mm.
attitude, like, oh, y'all are those kind of Christians. Y'all are not like us over here. So it was very prideful and
Mm-hmm.
very idolatrous. But when you're in it, you don't know. You don't
Mm-mm.
know. But yeah,
It
that's the
uh,
campus.
that is it. Oh my gosh.
That
And
is the campus.
we'll talk more about it. But I mean, just think about it, man. Just think about the overhead for something of this magnitude. Like, just consider that. Like,
Right.
what is the outflow just to turn on the air? What is the outflow to flush the toilets in 7,500 bathrooms, restrooms in this building? Like, just think about those small, minuscule things that kind of slip by. This is amazing.
I mean, there
I'm
were parts of that building that wasn't even being used when we were like when I was there in 2005. There are parts of that building I've never seen.
oh, I,
It was just so overwhelming. You get lost. You're like, I don't even know where I am, in terms of administrative buildings and classrooms and chapels. And it's just, it's just massive.
So like fun fact, like this building right over here in the top right over here, this little smaller building, that is like their gym. Like they had a
Yeah.
gym that was the size of many apartment complexes. And
Right.
fun fact, my wife was a member of New Birth when I met her, and we actually had premarital class in that building in the
Did you
yeah,
really?
and there were classrooms over there, and we had that's where
Did
we met.
someone
Yeah.
from New Birth marry y'all?
No, the speaker at the church that we were attending facilitated it, but
Got you.
they wanted us to have. So the agreement was we would get marital counseling at New Birth, and we would get married at my church, which was not
Just
even
as
a
bad.
fraction. Yeah, I mean, well, that too, but it was a fraction of the size of this building. But I mean, it's a fraction of the size of the gymnasium. But yeah. So just fun fact.
Right.
I think that's so. And like my college roommate went here,
Oh,
and actually,
wow.
it's his fault that I met my wife.
Oh, it's his
So
fault.
my it's his fault. So my college roommate and his wife were friends of my wife at New Birth, and they were like, "Oh, you should meet this friend of ours. He's a teacher," and blah blah blah. So they introduced us, and long story short, that's how we are, and
I
that's
probably
how we
know
met.
who they are. If I saw pictures of them, I'd be like, I remember them.
Oh, we'll do that offline, and their
We'll do that
house in
offline.
Spelman as
No
well.
problem.
Yeah. So just
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
this video is outstanding.
Oh,
But
it's
okay.
gorgeous.
Oh
It
no,
is
this
good.
is.
And I used to live like going back that way at the
Hmm.
time when I finally moved. Like I literally moved to DeKalb County from
I
Fulton
know a lot
County
of
because of
people who
New
did
Birth.
that. Yes.
That was the only reason why I moved out to the east side of town. I wasn't thinking about Lithonia. I was like, what? I don't have back then, well, before I got a car, I had no reason to be on that side of town. But
And
I would go through hell and hot water to make my way over there.
hmm every
But I ended
Wednesday, I
up
know people.
moving into the
Yep.
apartments right behind the church because I wanted to be close.
Yeah, I know tons of people who did the exact same thing. They
Oh
had a
wow.
school, so this was like their school. They had a school on one
Mm-hmm.
side. I'm not certain if this is the right side of it, but they had a school. I think it was it K-12
Faith
or K?
Academy. It's
Yeah,
closed
K-12.
now.
Yeah,
Faith Academy.
yeah, yeah. So wow. All right, so you are here at New Birth. You're doing the thing. Everything is sunshine and rainbows. You're on the dance ministry, doing all that kind of stuff, snubbing other folk. Like, oh, I go to New Birth.
Absolutely.
What was it like on campus, being a member of New Birth?
You know what? It was weird because so many students went to New Birth, but then there was always this small remnant that was like, something ain't right about that place. And I was like,
That
well,
was
why
me.
won't you come?
Hmm.
And I was just, and they, no one actually told me. I had never heard of the term false teacher or
Hmm.
heretic, right? There were those who went to like Mount Moriah right around the corner from school,
Yep.
and they were like, no, I don't
And
like that mega
friendship.
church
Yeah.
stuff. I just
Hmm.
like my little small little Baptist church where it's safe And I was just like, oh, that's a dead church. I could never
Oh my
go there.
gosh.
Y'all not
Yes.
popping like we popping on the east side of town. So I never had anyone ever question why I was there. It was too many of us that were just ingrained in the fabric of that church for there to have ever been a loud enough voice on campus to be like,
Something's wrong.
run from
Right.
that place. And if they were, I wasn't listening. I could not hear it. I couldn't hear them because just
You was
the
praise
rhetoric
dancing.
of and the rhetoric of Bishop Long was just reverberating in my head so hard that I wouldn't have heard if they did. I don't know.
I think living here in Atlanta is extra difficult because we have
Right.
lots of people who want to fill the shoes of an MLK, of a
Right.
John Lewis, of a prominent civil rights person. And some people go into the political field. Some people go into civil action. Some people go preacher and pastor. So it was
Right.
kind of hard because, I mean, like you said, like Long had a long arm of pull, if you will,
Right.
in DeKalb, and I'd go as far as say in
Fulton
Atlanta
too.
Metro. Yeah,
Right.
in Atlanta, the name did a lot of things. I know people who live way out at Six Flags that would drive all the way to New Birth. If you don't
I
know,
remember.
that's easily good 30 miles in the
Yes.
Metro Atlanta area just to go to church one way. So
Mm-hmm.
I totally get it. And of course, being young and impressionable, you know, 18, 20, 21 years old, college student, I mean, you are on top of the world. You feel like, oh man, I've arrived. and
Right.
and I'm sorry, that video, though it was interesting, I don't think it did justice to the size of, because like remember the traffic that y'all used to have before they did all the shenanigans on the highway? The traffic would be insane. Like
It could take
you
you
can't.
40 minutes to get out of church. So
Can you
it got
imagine
to
that?
a point where nobody rushed to leave because you're not going. Where are you going?
Where you
You
going?
going to rush to your car to sit. So a lot of us would kind of just linger afterwards to try to let some of that traffic, die down because it was really bad. You literally were just sitting and just waiting to go. So yeah, it was
I
it
mean,
was pretty extensive. But in terms of the whole deconstructing deconstruction, it's weird because being at New Birth, the Lord didn't save me until after I met okay, I'll put it like this. Before the Lord saved me, he pulled me out of New Birth, but it wasn't until I met my husband.
mhm.
So I meet my husband, and being the churchianity person that I was, I figured it would make sense to bring up, oh, well, where do you go to church? And he was
Where
just
did he
like,
go?
well, I'm newly saved, and right now I don't have a church home. I was like, oh, well, you can go to church with me. He's like, oh, where do you go to church? And I'm like, I go to New Birth. And immediately he was like, oh, nope, ain't gonna be able to do it.
I
And I
mean,
was like, why? He was
that is
like,
so interesting because we had a
why
lot
are
of.
you there?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, what's wrong with Newport? At first, I thought it was going to be, oh, don't tell me you're anti-prosperity, right? I was like, because when you were a member of New Birth, you were so used to being an apologist for the ministry that you heard
Yes.
all
Come
of
on.
the negative stuff, and you
Mm-hmm.
always had a reason to defense as to why you were not for the hope that was in you because of Christ. We
Right.
always had
Right.
a reason defense for why we were members of New Birth. So my husband is just like, I have a hard time listening to a pastor that got on a shirt that looked like it snapped between the legs. And I was like, what do you mean?
I love
I
your husband.
said,
That's my man. That's my
he's in
dude.
shape. I was like, at his age, he looks great I'm defending him to the death. At his age, he
Mm-hmm.
looks great for his age, and there's nothing wrong with those shirts. And Rob was like, those shirts are reeking of, he was
Something.
like, he just don't look right to me. On top of the fact, he was like, I went there once. I didn't like what I was hearing. I couldn't see where any of that was in the Bible. And so therefore he was like, I'm not going. I was like, oh, what are we gonna do? Because I'm not leaving New Birth. But the more and more time that I spent with my husband, I kind of saw what he meant. But
Hmm.
I was so enamored with him. I was like, well, listen, wherever you want to go, I will go.
Oh,
I
okay.
will leave. And plus, I was before my husband, I was dating someone at New Birth, and it was a very nasty breakup. And
Hmm.
I tried to stay there, but I kept seeing his retarded face, and it was so much mess. It was so much
How's his
mess
face
at that
retarded?
church. Oh, he was just retarded. And he was like one of the senior ushers, and I was just like, every time I go in my favorite door, you standing here, I don't want to see you. I don't even like you. No, you know what I'm
He
saying?
won
Like
house, is he?
we were together for 3 years, and so and
Oh wow.
everybody knew it was together. I was like, ugh,
Well,
I don't want to fool with this anymore. But there was a lot of mess behind the scenes that a lot of people would never, yeah, they probably would believe it. Aside from the allegations with the boys and stuff, that stuff was happening right under my nose, and
hmm,
I didn't even have the spiritual discernment to see it. Like I dated one of the spiritual sons and did not even know what was happening. You know what I'm
okay.
saying? Like I saw red flags, but I didn't, like, when you're in it, you're just like, oh, that's just their relationship and what they do. You don't really realize something is unhealthy about this
Something's on right.
relationship. Like whenever he and I are together, when the bishop called, it's like, oh, I gotta go. It was, you know how in a
Hmm.
fraternity, like when you're online, like
Hmm.
I'm not in a sorority or anything like that, but I've heard stories of like when you get that phone call,
When big sister, big brother call, you got to
you
go.
have to go.
Yes.
That's the amount of control that he had over the young men in his life. It didn't matter if we was at Lenox Mall and I was in the
Hmm.
middle of an ice cream cone or a meal. When he called, we have to go. I need to go. And I was like, okay, well, it's the bishop. The bishop called. So, you think you're being real pious and supportive, and you're like, well, whatever the ministry needs, go ahead, not realizing about what was happening behind the scenes. He
Gotcha.
was traveling with these young men. I mean, the money, they pick me up in a Maybach one week, and then the next week I'm in the Bentley. And
Hmm.
I'm like, I don't care. I'm in a
Right,
nicer
right.
car. You know, he's letting these young men use his vehicles, and he's buying them expensive jewelry. And I mean, I'm talking about, this is when bling bling and ice was like,
A
everybody
thing.
was wearing
Yeah, yeah.
diamonds and stuff. He was buying these young men diamond encrusted necklaces and bracelets and Rolex. Like, why are you gifting 20, 21-year-old young men Rolexes? Some of these guys were 17, 18, 19 years old, you know? So I got to see all of that. And even still, I was too dumb to be like, something ain't right here. April, you need to get out.
Man.
Even after experiencing at the hand of the ministry my own spiritual abuse, I still
Hmm.
didn't have sense enough to leave. And I think I told you that story.
Oh no, no, we're about to hear it in a second. So, but something that you said, I think we really need to sit there for a second, put a pin in it. That you spent so much time being an apologist for what was going on that other people external were seeing, because
Right.
Jen and myself and Rob did the exact same thing. We excused, we said, oh no, this is good that they're doing this. It's good that they're doing
Mm-hmm.
XYZ. And no, because you don't understand. But we understood because we had been drinking that Kool-Aid.
Oh,
But
yeah.
um, but I mean, so, and that's a good indicator that you're probably in an unhealthy situation when you have to explain. You have to spend a lot of time
Right.
explaining what the shenanigans of your leaders or what your church is pushing. I hate to say it, but a lot of people from World Changers do that. When I first came to Atlanta, I had never seen a mega church either. So
Me neither.
I'm from up north as well. So this is my first. experience. So I lived in College Park after I moved off campus. So, you're right there in the throes of World Changers. And of course, I'm familiar with New Birth from living on campus. But I'd never seen a mega church. And so it never dawned on me how much time people who went there were trying to explain, this is when, Creflo was full on word of faith,
Oh yeah.
that, the hints about people looking at people's W-2s.
Right.
And if you're not tithing, I wish I could take you in the back and shoot you, stuff like that. This crazy stuff. I mean, and people I used to work with and went to school with, I can just hear now in my ears how much they used to try to explain that and try to oh no, that's not what he meant. Maybe he said he wanted to shoot people. What else does that mean? What does shoot people mean to you? So what does that mean? So, but yeah, just how much we would apologize for bad doctrine, bad teaching, error teaching. But I want you to, okay, so I just want to stop right there because I thought that was an excellent point. Okay, so you're starting to wake up. So you broke up with the guy with the bad face. You broke up with him. Wait, your husband's name is Robert?
Yes.
Okay, Team Robert. Robert is Robert to the rescue. So he's rescuing you from here. What was it that caused you to start thinking that something was awry, that wasn't good?
Well, Robert kept hinting that he was like, that dude, I just smell, I don't know if I can use the word homosexual. Can I say homosexual?
Yeah, I think so. We're going to, the tone police in the comment section will let us know if that's not right. Mark will let us know.
The dude has some homosexual tendencies. And I was like, you are insane. I was like, have you seen his wife? She is gorgeous. He is I was like, he doesn't get down like that. And he was like, I'm just telling you, like my husband really does have a very strong sense of discernment. And we've been together 15 years and be married 14. No, together 16 and we'll be married 14 years this year. He's really wrong. But back then I'm just like, okay, I mean, I guess, all right, maybe the shirt's a little too tight. And he was like, he was like, and I was like, well, women just need to control their flesh. That's a married man. He was like, but is he wearing it for the dudes though? Or is he wearing it for the women? And I was like, I ain't never thought about that. I was like, you think he's wearing it for, I'm so naive. Like even at my age now, I just been like, you think so? He was like, yes. He was like, he's doing that for the guys, right? And he was like, his inner circle suspect. I don't know, boys that be around him is suspect. He was like, didn't you tell me you used to date one of them? And I was like, yeah, but, okay, he might have been a little suspect. I was just, I was around, he had a lot of people in his inner circle that the milk just wasn't too right.
Correct.
And you knew it, but you didn't want to believe it. So you would explain it away. Oh, he's just eccentric. He's real artsy. Or, you know how musicians are. They're just real into their feminine side. Like, you just start making excuses. But it got to the point where I couldn't make excuses anymore. And I was like, well, maybe there is something to what my husband was saying. So when I left New Birth, it wasn't because at that moment the Lord had saved me or showed me the error of what was being taught there. I didn't realize that I was in error until, I left in 2005. It wasn't till probably 2013 or 14 that I realized that everything that I had learned, it took that long for me to deconstruct, because I just went from one heretical church to another. I ended up.
And go ahead. I'm sorry.
No,
I don't want you to get too far.
2 other ministries right after that were not as bad, but they were on par doctrinally.
They weren't any better.
No, they weren't.
So what was he actually teaching? I would like to. So I think we totally understand the activities and the actions were bad. But somebody would say, oh, well, he was teaching. We had church today, girl. Oh, he was. Tell us.
So, like mind manipulation or like
Mm-hmm.
hypnosis, I would feel like a lot of times when Bishop Long would preach, it was very rare that he would just open your Bible and just teach. Everything was it was always this esoteric. So I'm honestly looking back at it now, I'm like, you just didn't prepare a sermon. So you just decide to get up here and make it seem like, the Lord is dealing with you right now. And he would talk in these really encryptic terms. And you'd be sitting there like, oh, that was deep. But then when you actually thought about it, you like, what? What did you just
Right.
say?
Somebody
So
says
I
that
would
you
say
over spiritualize things.
Right. Everything was just spiritualized.
Mm-hmm.
Doctrinally, he was the precursor to I would say that new apostolic reformation crap that you see now.
Really?
The reason why I say that is because he was definitely heavy prosperity.
Okay.
But he did it in a way that wasn't icky like a Creflo. So if you were a member of New Birth, you would always think that you were better than World Changers because your prosperity, we was like prosperity light, and Creflo was just like bam in your face prosperity. So we
Right. He was
always
full
felt
octane.
like we had some moral high ground to stand on because we just didn't blatantly say the pastor out to take your money, right?
Right.
Bishop Long was real slick with his in the sense that he could really wiggle money out your pocket without making you realize that you just wiggled money out your pocket. Creflo would just come out and say, you need to come down here and drop
give me this money.
200 now. Like he would just say that. Bishop Long had a little bit more finesse, right?
You want to come getting this money down here, right?
Right, no, but
you want to.
It was like, but only if you want to.
You want to.
We don't do that over here. We're not gonna make you do. Just how much do you love the Lord? It was real subtle. Real subtle. He was so good, Jay. He was so good that I remember the Sunday like the back of my hand when we stopped passing the collection plate.
Yeah, tell the story. I've heard you tell the story, and I think this is a really good one.
I remember it because it was so slick. We were like little robots. He had just made an announcement that he wasn't going to pass it no more. That we didn't have to worry about, the ushers didn't need to do anything but come to the altar because the Holy Spirit was going to be that intense in the place that you were going to be compelled to run to the altar and drop your gift. And that's exactly what we would do.
Wow.
Before you would come in and get settled and find you a good seat, you'd have your purse, your check, and your envelope in hand, and you just lay it at the altar like a good little sheep. It was so slick.
What was the purpose for that? Like, because I know that World Changers does it too. What was the purpose? What was the rationale of? Mind you, this is before COVID. Anybody knew anything about COVID or passing place? Why did they do that?
I think it was a show. I mean, because if you've got people just coming down in droves, just throwing money at the altar on camera, that looks amazing to have all those envelopes and cash just scattered all over the place. And then in one fell swoop, you got a swarm of ushers that descend upon the pulpit and they just gather it all up and take it to the back. I mean, it had an amazing shock value. It's kind of like Pavlov's dog, or it was a good form of mind control because you can't be the only one still sitting in your seat not giving.
Right. You
can't do that. You got to get up and give something, right?
Oh my gosh. I think they did. There's that question.
That's that. World Changers has an ATM.
Okay.
New Birth. You know what? New Birth might have had an ATM. I never had to use it though.
Right. I do vaguely remember that. Yeah. I think so. Right. And I'm pretty certain they probably do now, but they probably got a doggone Bitcoin machine up in that piece now. But watch out, Tone Police. Watch out. No, okay.
With some doctrinal distinctives, let me just answer this that I learned when I was there. I'm trying to think back. He was really big on taking, the name of their broadcast was Taking Authority.
Yes.
I know the song. Don't make me break out and sing it. But
Oh my.
The taking authority.
Drop a like if you want April to sing. If we get, hey, make sure you like and subscribe to her channel because she'll sing on her channel.
Oh, well.
The after party.
That was a big theme. And what did he mean by taking authority? Literally, it was that kingdom dominion theology that was started. It started way back then. People think that the NAR people, no. That kingdom dominion, taking authority over
I remember that.
Footstep is yours. That was Bishop Long. He really had you thinking that you could just speak it into existence, and that you had the authority. If you want a Benz, you could speak a Benz. I didn't get a Benz. I didn't. That the house, none of those things ever manifested. But he made you think that you could do those things. It was really big on taking authority, the kingdom, on earth as it is in heaven, and we just taking over.
And it didn't help that they literally did take over DeKalb County. So it didn't. Right. It didn't help with the. It did help. I'm sorry. It did help the narrative, if you will.
Right.
Because again, like this was a political powerhouse. So
it was.
You guys had the politicians come in. You had council people come in, and don't quote me whose funeral was there. Everybody went.
Coretta Scott King's funeral was at.
Coretta Scott King's funeral was there. There's other.
Left Eye's funeral was at New Birth.
Whose?
Left Eye.
You're right. Absolutely. From
She's
TLC.
Right around the corner from New Birth.
Wow.
At Gillendale Cemetery.
Yeah. So this is not just some, run of the mill. They were definitely not on the Chitlin circuit any longer. They were in the big league. So So the idea, I do remember that taking authority. My roommate was big into that. Good guy, but he was big into New Birth ideology and such like that. So totally get it. All right. So you're becoming aware that there's something wrong that there's something stinketh in Denmark, and your husband's been saying it for a while. So where were y'all? So how did you end up actually escaping or leaving?
Well, the thing about it is I knew something was wrong with New Birth very early, but I suppressed it and I did not want to believe it.
What was it that stood out? Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, one, my credit got jacked up for 7 years. But...
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that.
Right.
Oh, you gotta tell us that.
Real quick. So like my sophomore year, you start seeing stuff and you make excuses. My sophomore year, I went to a Wednesday night service, and this was it was supposed to be Bible study, but New Birth never studied the Bible, right? It was just another midweek service that took up an offering. Like I figured it out. What? So
what me and Jen used to call it, because the church that we attended, they had they had a Saturday service and they had 3 Sundays.
We had 3.
And 3 Sunday service. And then they had Wednesday Bible study. And we just called it fifth service because there was no Bible study. It usually was overflow from whatever was talked about on Saturday and Sunday. So if we was talking about, Genesis 1 verse 3, he's going to somehow or another, the Lord is still dealing with and marinating on it. So the Wednesday night would become the 5th service. That was a joke. But okay, I'm sorry. I had to get that off. I know Jen was in the comments a second ago. Okay, go ahead. No,
so like a Wednesday night Bible study where the Bible's not being studied, he was like, the Lord is telling me that there's somebody in here that is drowning and swimming in debt, and you got 6 credit cards, and you just the debt, you just oppressed up under this debt, and we want to free you today. If that's you, come on down to the altar. Listen, I'm a sophomore. I had 6 credit cards, 2 Citibank Visas, 2 Citibank MasterCards, a Discover, and an Express. That's 6, right? And I'm working my little part-time job at Structure, at clinics.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm just, trying to be a student, but I'm like, how did I get myself into this mess? Like, I had all this credit card debt. Like, I'm fly. Like, I'm on campus, fly as all get out, but broke as I want to
As,
be, because I'm
yeah, yeah.
literally living this life that New Birth speaks of, but I'm living that way on credit. So this Wednesday, I got there late and I was sitting in the balcony. But honey, when I tell you I flew from that balcony so fast, like I was out of breath, crying, snotting, because I was like the woman who's like, if I could just touch the hem of his garment,
It's
I'm
like
gonna
it's
be
touch the
dead
hem of
home.
his wallet.
Listen, bro, I pressed my way through.
Uh-uh.
I know I knocked some little old lady down, and I didn't care.
Who touched my wallet? Who touched my wallet?
I had my 6 cards. He was like, bring the cards. I'm shuffling in my wallet, trying to get all 6 of the cards, and I run down to the altar, and I'm, thank you, Jesus. Like, I'm crying, and I hand Elder Murphy my cards, because then Bishop Long goes, now, there's some people in here who the Lord has blessed you, and he's enlarged your territory, because he was big on, enlarge your territory, right? He's like, the Lord has enlarged your territory,
Oh, I remember
and you
that.
have the means. You can take care of this debt. You can take care of this debt. So I'm hearing this in the background while, the little prayer counselors are praying. Elder Murphy has my credit cards, and I think somebody had whispered, like, do you know the balances all together? And I think I was like, it's like 6,000, or I don't know, And so some people came down who claimed they were going to, pay off the debt.
Yeah.
And the plan was, we're going to pair you up. We're going to distribute this debt amongst these people, and you debt free today. You can go home and have victory in Jesus and know that you don't have to worry about this debt. It's a new day for you. Then the music is playing. New Birth's band was the best to ever do it. I don't know what y'all had over in there, but the band was hot.
I'm pretty sure Jen will chime in, and she probably would have gone on out to the
I'm
Decatur if she.
Musician, because they sensitive about their stuff.
Yeah.
Right. New Birth's band, I mean, we were stealing musicians from everybody. So Kevin,
she was stealing musicians from Prince.
William Murphy.
Prince who? Paisley Park. What?
The goal, like if you was in the band at New Birth, because New Birth
I'm sure.
Well, like their drummer used to get back then like 900 a Sunday.
Wow.
900 stacks a Sunday plus Wednesday. And so anyway. New Birth paid. They listen. Good help don't come cheap.
Oh.
Yes, they had the money. New Birth, Bishop Long did not spare an expense. When it came to stuff, he was flashy like that. He was like, we're gonna do the best. So anyway, make a long story short, I hand my credit cards over. There's some people that come, they're supposed to be taking care of the debt. I get the cards, and I'm like, I'm free in Jesus.
It's a new day. It's a new day.
I'm debt free. I'm starting over.
Wow, man, that's powerful. Then your mama called. Then your mama called.
Everybody's hugging me. Oh, God bless you, sis. And I'm just like, thank you. Oh, snotting all over the place. Listen, a couple of weeks later, I hand my cards over. So to me, I don't have no more debt. Credit card. I don't have credit cards. Right?
New phone. Who's this?
I'm living cash is king.
Oh yeah.
Well, a couple of weeks later, my mom calls me like, why is Citibank calling me?
Nah, mama.
Why is Citibank calling the house? And I'm like, Mom, what you mean? She's like, Citibank's called the house, said that you missed your credit card payment. And I'm like, oh, you don't have to worry about that. I said, I forgot to tell you a couple of Wednesdays ago at Bible study, Bishop Long, New Birth is taking care of. I've already given her my cards. I told her the whole story. She's like, really? She's like, oh, okay. She's like, you sure? I'm like, that's what they said. And she's like, okay. So she, she's going to leave it alone. Like the next month, she's like, okay, April, the credit card statements are coming. They like pink now. Like it had to be more than a month. It had to be more than a month.
Yeah, yeah.
Because by this time, not only are the calls coming and the letters are coming, they're getting real. Like back then, this was before the FTC put like rules on what you could say and the time.
Hmm.
Like they were just real reckless and disrespectful with it, even though I owed them. And my mom is like, April, do I need to come down there and handle this? Because none of
Uh-oh.
these balances are going down. And I said, no, you know what? I'm down here. I'm an adult. Do not worry about it. I will get to the bottom of it. And so I approached the elder I handed my credit cards to, like,
Hmm.
hey, remember me? Yeah. You remember that Wednesday during the altar call? Like, he's trying to act all brand new, like he don't remember. Right.
Not
And
new
he's like,
phone. Who's this?
right. This is the college campus elder, mind you. So he
Right.
can't front like he didn't remember. Dude, I'm about to say the wrong. Dude, you know who I am. Right? Stop playing. He's like, oh, yeah, I remember. He was like, you know what? Let me look into that and get back with you. I'm like, okay, here's my number. I do work. So if I don't answer, this is back. There's no cell phones. Leave a
Hmm.
voicemail,
Oh my gosh.
or
Yes.
hit me
Oh
up.
my gosh.
I don't hear back from him. So I'm like,
Mm-mm.
all right. I go that Sunday, and I could tell he was avoiding me because all of the college students sat in the front. Like we had a
Yes,
whole
it
little
did.
area. Bishop Long was very particular. You always leave a spot for my college students. So we always got front row seats.
Always.
So I sat in the college section, but I made sure I sat in the front. And I'm looking at Elder Murphy like, you're not gonna skirt past me this week. So after service, I'm like, hoo-hoo, it's me again, not trying to be a bugaboo, but just checking in, following up. He was like, oh yeah, about that. So the people that came forward that said they were gonna pay the debt, like they're not really returning our calls. We can't get in touch
Oh.
with somebody. So unfortunately, we're sorry about that.
Mm.
I'm like, say what now? I'm like, sorry. I was like, well, now in my mind, I'm playing this in slow motion because I'm like,
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
not really happening. Because I said, well, sir, I stopped paying the bills. He was like, well, when'd you stop? The night he told me I was debt free. I said,
You're
I
debt free.
haven't paid. He's like, you haven't paid on any of them? I said, no. I said, I was barely struggling to make the minimum payments when it was current, but at least it was current. I said, I wasn't behind. He's like, oh, well, you shouldn't have done that. You should at least, paid on them until you had confirmation that this was a go. I said, no. It was a go when he announced from the pulpit that I was debt free in Jesus' name. You said in Jesus' name, I'm debt free. It's a new day for me, remember? So I'm standing there not advocating for myself, right? Because this is me telling the story after the fact, but I did not advocate for myself. I literally stood there like a lost little puppy and just cried on the inside because I'm like, my mama gonna kill me.
Oh, she's gonna get you.
I was like, she's gonna kill me, and now she's gonna come want to kill one of y'all because
Uh-oh.
y'all reneged on your promise. I didn't have the heart to call out that foolishness and be like, nope, I demand to see the bishop because somebody's lying. You know what I did? I said, well, you know what? This is not Bishop's fault.
Mm-mm.
He's up here. He's got all of y'all down here that's supposed to be mad, and y'all have mismanaged this. So I'm not going to be mad at him because he probably doesn't even know what happened. And in my mind, I said, Bishop Long wouldn't do this to me. So instead, I excused him and put the blame on his henchmen and these mysterious people that came down there for
Came
show.
down, yes.
I excused it, and then my mom, I'm avoiding her calls, and finally she's like, so what happened? And then when I told her, she was done. My mama was ready to fly down
Yes, she
and
was.
put her foot up somebody's tail. And I literally, my stupid butt, when that was the person who at least had the decency to want to advocate for me, I begged her not to do it. I said, Mom, please. Don't, one, I didn't want to come down here and embarrass me. Two, I don't want her to come down here and embarrass me.
Embarrassment.
So I just was like, I will deal with it. Don't worry about it. Let the Lord, like, I came up with every super spiritual colloquialism you could think of. The Lord's gonna fight this battle. The battle is not yours, it's the Lord.
But you know what though, April, you learned it. You were discipled in that, in
Oh yeah.
super spiritualizing stuff like that. You were an A+ student because you
Oh yeah.
super
I learned from the
spiritualized
best.
everything.
I learned from the best. To this day, my
Wow.
mama's still mad. Do you know my credit was jacked up for 7 years after that?
Uh,
Because once you
yeah.
get, I'm not making any money. Once you get that far behind, there was no catching up. And so it just, at 7 years, you that young, my mama got a cosign for me to get an apartment. My
Yep.
mom, I could not live as an adult down here alone, really, without my mom kind of trying to clean up that mess because my credit was just jacked up at that point. And
Yes.
I still didn't leave Newburgh. I didn't leave.
Wow.
I stayed and worshiped the bishop because that's what it was. It was man worship at the to the worst degree. The level of idolatry that was in my heart was awful. I could not I could not see Christ because my heart was so captivated just in the ministry. And so what got me out of there, the Lord providentially had me date that guy for 3 years. We break up. I didn't leave. I left New Birth because of that guy, and because my now guy I'm dating, who's now my husband, was like, something's not right with that place. And then when I told him that story, he was like, "Oh, you definitely not going." And I told him how long ago. He said, "Wait a minute. You mean to tell me this happened in 98, 99, and it's now 2005, and you still there?" He was like, "Somebody's stupid, but I ain't gonna say it's you. I'm just saying it. Somebody,
Somebody is.
somebody, right?"
Wow. No, no. And I appreciate you telling that story because as the comment section has been amening it left and right and center, so many of us have fallen into this in some way, shape, or form. And I do think it was a cult of personality. Like he and I almost kind of want you to jump over where you and Robert landed so we can save that for the next episode because there's something that happened at New Birth. If people don't know, there's something that happened and they brought in a replacement. And I know for a fact that was that hire was a cult of personality. But
Yes,
no, so but let's finish up. So Robert put his foot down. Thank God. I need to
yes.
meet him. So I'm gonna be coming down
You will
probably
love
next weekend, and I'm gonna come by and put my hand in his hand and thank him because I'm glad somebody made some sense. So he put his foot
it.
down and said, "No, you got to go."
Right.
What were your thoughts when he said, "No, you got to go"?
I think it was a sign of relief because I had wanted to go, but I just didn't know how. Like, literally, when you left New Birth, it was like a bad breakup because the church is so big. Mind you, you didn't
Hmm.
really have deep, deep relationships with people, but you had relationship enough. You saw these people at the mall. You saw
Everywhere
your church members at
in
the
school.
grocery store. We were like a whole clique.
Hmm.
So I didn't know. I was like, well, if I leave, where am I go? He was like, you know how many churches are in this city? I was like, but to me, that was the end all be all. And I was like, I don't know how to be a churchian out
Hmm.
or outside of this church, and I didn't. I didn't even know how to acclimate myself and fit in another church culture because my point of reference was New Birth would do it this way. New Birth did it like this.
I'll go as far to say that, like for myself, I didn't even know how to read the Bible.
Nope.
Like I carried it, and I carried it every Sunday. I had no idea how to read it though, and that's to be a whole grown man, a school
Right.
teacher, a husband and a father that says I didn't know how to read the Bible. Like I didn't understand how to read
Me
it.
neither.
So to go somewhere where they do read it and they do understand how to read it, and you're like, ooh, this is oh. So I'll talk about that during my
I'm gonna just say
reconstruction.
this
But go
one
ahead.
last thing. My deconstruction, this is what it looked like. The first phase was, how do you read the Bible without hearing it through the ears and the voice of that pastor, because
Mm-hmm.
I would read certain texts, and I had another girlfriend of mine said the same thing. She could not read the Bible for a long time because all
Mm-hmm.
she heard was Creflo, right? And so I would,
I've heard that.
you read certain texts and you're putting that man's spin on it because you're like, this is how they taught it, so this is how I'm supposed to understand it.
I'm gonna say something stupid. Okay. The speaker at the church that I used to attend, he would put
The
the
speaker.
right. I refuse to call him a pastor. I refuse. Catch me outside, Brian. But the speaker every Sunday he would post the scriptures, and they
Right.
would bounce. There would easily be 5 or 6 different versions in the outline. Message, NIV, King James, just whatever. One in retrospect, they never used the ESV. So when I became a Presbyterian, Presbyterians, we use the ESV, the
I
elect
love the
study.
ESV.
There you go. But I think it was good because he had never preached out of the ESV, and he had never
Right.
ruined it for me. He had ruined the King James and the New King James and NIV. So I'm with you with that, hearing his voice, but he never preached out of the ESV. So,
Yeah, it was bad for me because now let's fast forward the rise of social media. You started MySpace, but when I
oh
got
my
introduced
gosh.
to Facebook, that's when I realized, listening just to certain voices by way of people I knew, that I was like, oh my gosh, that's not in the scripture.
Mm-mm.
That's not what that means. I didn't know. But my first knee-jerk reaction was to fight against it. So I'm hearing someone, exegete Malachi and what it really,
Oh my
the
gosh.
whole
Come
God of
on.
God thing. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
come
no,
on.
got some
No,
tithes,
that's
got some tithes. If
y'all.
you don't,
Y'all
you
do
just
know.
first fruits. You got to do that.
That's the passage that broke me out of it. I,
Was
I
it?
tell when I have a friend and I told the story, the reason I do Dear Woke Christian like I do it is because I want to make people mad. Because somebody came to me and said, the Bible doesn't teach tithing. Fool, what you talking about? He said, go and read it. Go
That's
and
what
read it,
happened
bro.
to me.
And he said, go on and read it. And he said, do this for me. Read the whole thing.
Yep.
It's only 3 chapters. Just read the whole
Right.
thing. I came back with tears in my eyes. One, tears of anger.
Yeah,
Like
I
I
was
can't
mad.
believe you upset my apple cart. But then the other anger was that these rascals have been lying to me for this long. What else have y'all been lying to me about? And that's what did it. That was
That's what
a
started my deconstruction. When I
yes.
heard that, when I was mad, because I'm like, you dirty dog, you've been stealing from me this whole time, and I've been giving my last when I didn't even have it, not
Girl,
even
come on.
realizing what the Bible taught about it. So that took me down a rabbit hole to some other doctrines that I was like, wait a minute, we can't speak things into existence.
Mm-mm.
Are you
Nope.
sure? Because I
I'm
know that's what
positive.
the Bible says.
I'm positive because I'm speak that there's some drink in here and it's actually all
Right.
gone. So
It
I'm
was
just
like
praying.
layers and layers. And the Lord, I always give credit to this brother. Brother Seiko. Seiko is the person who gave me the gospel in its
Praise God.
pure, unadulterated form, and basically told me I needed to get saved because I was deceived. We had a very tumultuous relationship. I could not stand him. Oh, it's so bad. But you know what? His friend who basically we had a mutual friend together.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember how him and Lewis got to know each other, but Lewis and I grew up together in New York. He's like my big brother. Like, he's fam. Literally, I've known him. He knew me from I was like yay high to a pup.
Yeah, yeah.
So when I saw that they were friends, I'm like, oh, you friends with him too? I was like, I can't stand that dude. And he was great. He was patient with me. And he just kept posting what the scriptures say. He wouldn't even add commentary. He was just posting scriptures, and I was getting mad at the scriptures, like in their plain, unadulterated,
Read
just
it. Yes,
plain
yes.
reading of the text. I was just upset. And then one night, I distinctly remember I was like, you know what? I don't like this dude. I don't like how he's captivated my friend and got my friend telling me all this stuff, but I can't deny that what they're saying is not true. And I just was like, I'm not a Christian. I was like, I never believed any of this stuff up before this point. I literally
Mm-hmm.
had to have a come to Jesus meeting where I was like,
Where you
I
really
don't know
came to
the God of the
Jesus.
Bible. I did not, right. I did not know the God of the Bible. And so when I'm having this like epiphany moment and I'm
Come on.
sharing it with my husband, and he kind of had this relieved look like, finally, Lord,
Finally.
somebody, because these were things like my husband would always say, I don't see that in the Bible. But I was very rebellious, right? Like,
No, really?
right, I know, right? My husband and I've always had a great relationship, and he wouldn't have married me if he didn't believe that I wasn't going to submit to his headship. That wasn't it. I'm just a very dogmatic person. Like when I believe something, I could be strong and wrong and it don't matter because I'm like, I believe it. And my
Guilty as
husband, he
charged.
was patient with me and he just let me go off on the deep end and would try to lovingly bring me back. And then one night I was like, you were right. He was like, about what? And when I started telling him, he was like, I tried to tell you that wasn't in the text, but he's an infant in the faith trying to steer somebody who think they say toward the truth. And it got to the point we didn't really talk about spiritual things because I was just like, you just not spiritual. Right. I was like,
Oh
you just
gosh.
don't know no better. Because my husband didn't grow up in the church. Right.
Yes.
He was just like, I mean, Jesus wept, but that was the extent of his theological training. Me, I was born and raised in the church. Like church was all I knew, but I did
Mm-hmm.
not know the God of the Bible. And so it was easy for me to get sucked up in a false church with a false pretense of, it was a religious activity for me. I absolutely loved being ingrained in church stuff, but I didn't want God. I didn't want to live for him. I was not trying to obey. Like I want, no, I want to try to do none of that. I want to
Wow.
be in the club
Not in the
doing
club.
me.
I
Oh
love
yeah,
it. All right. So April, because I feel like we are at
we had
the
our
next
mark.
stop. We're at our mark. The next stop is going to be where you all landed because I want to hear your story. However, I do want an extra because I want to talk about this because I have no problem with this either. So we're going to skip where you all when you left and you having this epiphany and all that kind of good jazz. We're going to save that for when we get with Jen the next time, and we'll do that.
Right.
The reconstructing of your faith of your construction.
Woo.
But let's go back to New Birth. Let's visit them. So in was it 2015? When did the whole
Jamal Bryant.
no that with Eddie Long and the whole the lawsuits, the allegations, and then of course his passing away.
I think it was either 2014 or 2015. You're right around
Yeah. Okay.
the
Okay.
area when the
Okay.
allegations. So what happened was those allegations came out, but remember it was like a string of mega church pastors that were just
Yep.
falling.
Yep.
You
Yep.
had Bishop Earl Polk, who
Polk.
pastored Chapel Hill, Cathedral of
Yep.
the Holy Spirit, which was a big mega church. Like him and
Mm-hmm.
Bishop Long was Ace Boone Coons. So when his scandal came out, I mean, people were just crushed. And I literally watched that ministry just get plowed to the ground.
Right.
And so when Bishop Long's scandal came out, I was long gone. I knew he was a false teacher. And it crushed a lot of people. And I mean, there was a lot of wreckage. And I had tried to I was like, see, I tried to tell you. I was like, y'all don't want to listen. But I was like, I was there too. Like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
just kind of have to
Yeah.
be there to kind of rock people when it
Mm-hmm.
started coming out. And one of my mom's good friends, her and her husband, it took them a while to leave because they didn't want to believe it. You don't understand. Bishop Long was a giant to
Oh yeah.
his members. So for something like this to come out, you're like, oh, this ain't nothing but a trick of the enemy. They trying
Mm-hmm.
to tear the man of God down. And so you had people praying like clockwork
Yep.
around the clock, trying to rebuke the enemy and, tear down the
You're right.
stronghold.
And
Oh,
somebody
should we tell them?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do it.
The scandal was there were several allegations of underage young men who Bishop Long had lured into doing sexual things in exchange for money and gifts and
Yeah.
trips. Like it was done under the guise of these are my spiritual sons because he was
Yep.
mentoring a lot of young men. But some of
And
those young men, there were illicit relationships and things that had happened that were inappropriate.
absolutely. And something else you got to point out, they had a functional men's ministry. It
Oh,
wasn't
yes.
just, yeah, I mean, they had, so when most, typical churches and Baptist churches have very disproportionate male to female ratio or male to female involvement,
Not New Birth.
everything I saw and everything I read was that New Birth was 50-50. I don't even know how you could get 70-70. There's a lot of people,
It was a
and
lot of men.
a lot of men were involved in doing work like service and
Oh,
serving
yeah.
there, and then,
So it was
but
called the
then also
Nation of
this.
Jesus was our men's ministry.
Yeah, that was it. Okay, yeah.
The men's ministry, the Nation of Jesus, was more robust than any woman's ministry, hands down.
Okay.
Bishop Long had a way of, for one, if you were fatherless, he had a way of making you feel like you actually had a father and you could have never had a personal one-on-one conversation with him, but he was just able, it was very paternal, very
Yes.
fatherly. So a lot of fatherless Black men were drawn to that. And they were also drawn, I hate to use the term faux masculinity, but he did have this appeal for like, roar, like,
Yeah.
I am man, hear me roar. So you're like, yeah, like, like we're men, right? They had the jackets, it was
Yeah.
like
I
a
remember the
whole little
jackets.
production, right? And
Yeah.
so it was easy for people to be like, I don't believe those allegations. No, considering Bishop Long led the charge against the LGBT agenda before anybody would touch it.
Mm-hmm.
When the whole gay marriage issue was starting to become a thing, Bishop Long was like, we don't do that here. We uphold marriage between a man and a woman. And he stood alone on that hill.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the allegations came out, we were like, no, that can't possibly be true. Now, me, I was like, well, from what I knew about his relationship with his spiritual sons, one that in
Right.
which I had dated intimately, I was like, I can see how that could happen.
Wow.
Because Bishop Long was an open book. So like these young men, he'd had them at the house. If he's traveling out of town on ministry he would go to the Bahamas with what's that bishop's name down there? Neil Ellis.
Neil Ellis,
Whenever
yeah.
he would go down there, he taking a whole entourage with him. He's out on the West Coast, he's taking his entourage with him.
Wow.
And it was always men, just a slew of them. And then he started keeping company with some dudes that didn't look as masculine as before. You're like, some of the company he started keeping made me wonder, and I don't know this for sure, but I just know, even after I left and I started examining some of the company he would keep, I'm like, that dude, sugar is in the tank. Why? He kept a lot of suspect people around him, and it just didn't make sense. Like, I remember this one flamboyant guy with long hair, and he used to wear these long jackets and capes and be twirling around. And I'd be like, that's your boy? Like, why is this your dude?
Right.
But you say it, but you don't say it out loud, because if you say it and imply that it's something that people are going to look at you like, how could you say such a thing? But the signs were all there. The signs were all there.
Wow.
I mean, the signs were all there.
The signs were there. So that happened, and that really rocked the Atlanta area. I mean,
it did.
That rocked the Atlanta area. As much as Atlanta likes to be segmented in its different little pockets, that was one that I think those ripples fluctuated throughout all of the metro and Atlanta area.
What ended up happening is they lost a lot of members. The membership started dwindling, and then they went from having 3 services to doing damage control and saying, you know what, we just gonna do 1 service. And I was
Oh,
like, well, it's because like y'all can't fill up the cathedral.
right.
And you started seeing slowly but surely the broadcast schedule started getting chipped away because he would
Mm-hmm.
come on TBN. He was on the Word. I mean, he was on all of the Christian networks. They were paying a lot of money. And then eventually you're like, is Taking Authority still being broadcast? Is it still on?
Oh,
Because
wow.
they weren't getting the slots. The
Mm-hmm.
balcony started getting real thin. And you'd be like, okay, well, we all just gonna consolidate. And it just started getting progressively worse and worse. And
Mm-hmm.
then more allegations would come out. And the first lawsuit they settled. Nobody's got some money. And then some more people came forward. And then when he pulled them shenanigans with that fake Jew, that fake
Yes.
messianic Jew that came and exalted him on that throne and did that fake little messianic ceremony. That was the end. At that point, I was like, it's over. It's over.
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
lost so many members from that foolishness. Then he started having the midlife crisis and wearing the grapes on his head, and it just got bad.
But I was trying to find that picture of him being carried around on
Oh,
that
with the hair?
throne. Well, the hair too, but yeah, that too. But okay, and I don't remember when, but eventually he did actually pass away. Um, and I, I don't think it ever was really clear what happened, but he just deteriorated quick. Like it was like, wow, Eddie
Well,
Long
he
is
tried to say that he had adopted a vegan lifestyle, which I don't believe that's false. I believe he adopted a plant-based vegan lifestyle because whatever he got diagnosed with, he thought if I go plant-based cold turkey, you know, I don't know if I'm a certified holistic health practitioner. You can reverse chronic illness, degenerative disease by adopting a plant-based diet. So based on that
mm,
training, when he came out, lost all that weight, talking about he done gone vegan, I was like, yeah, either he got the package, the gift that keep on giving, or it's cancer.
right, right.
So they claimed it was cancer. I don't believe that though. I don't.
Yeah,
But it's not what I believe,
right.
It's just when you decline that fast,
It was
um,
fast.
that it was almost like God's judgment was like, you know what? I'm not even playing with you no more. And it
Yeah,
it went swift. It was
very
very,
swift.
very sad. It was very sad.
All right, so and here's where I'm gonna chime in. So Eddie Long passes away, you know, and all that happens, and then they start a search, and they find themselves another passer. Who did they find? Who did they tap? They must have found somebody with a clean, squeaky record, a fine, upstanding person who teaches sound biblical exegesis to lead them into this new season of taking authority and such. Right? They did.
They tapped your
Right?
Morehouse brother.
Boy, good gracious alive. So I
Jay
have a
Bryant is a
they
Morehouse man.
catch me
I
outside,
don't
homie.
blame him though, but
No, I
they
ain't messing
tapped
with
your
him.
boy.
Jamal
And it's funny
Bryant.
because Jamal had already had a scandalous history. He had already been divorced from his wife for having an extramarital affair, not once, but several times. I was so disappointed. Like you would think after all the scandal surrounding the ministry that they would have said, you know what, we can't afford no smoke. Let's get somebody in here. But they had to keep the cog going. So they had to bring in someone with a strong name recognition who could keep the offerings flowing. And what better person than Jamal Hot Pants Bryant?
I know someone who and it's 100% hearsay, but it makes sense that they literally said who was on the search committee told them we had to pick him because he had the name
Yeah,
recognition. Because don't forget, he was still doing or just had finished some reality TV show he had
right,
been a part of. I don't know which one it was, but Pastor Jamal Bryant was involved
right.
in a reality TV show in Maryland before he came down here to Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, oh my gosh, I was like, how thirsty did y'all really need to be? Like y'all couldn't have
Desperate. They
found.
were very desperate.
Yeah, you that's some.
But heretics go heretic. They brought him in, and doctrinally, he's trash, as you know. Their membership still has not recovered, but they're able to kind of maintain and sustain. But I don't think they're doing well at all.
And you know what? Somebody did mention, and we kind of skipped over. There was a pastor between Eddie and Jamal. I did forget about that guy, but he
Right.
left.
So
He was like,
that
"Ooh,
guy
yeah,"
pastored New Birth.
one of their satellites.
He was like, so what happened? I skipped the part. New Birth started planning other New Births. So we had like
Oh
New Birth
yeah.
South, New Birth Marietta. We had New Birth Charlotte.
Yep.
There were other New Births that were being planted around the country. And I think the guy that they brought in before Jamal was one of those New Birth church plants.
Yep.
But he didn't last very long. I don't know what happened to him, to be honest. But nobody really wanted it. Nobody really wanted it.
I can't imagine why you would. I can't imagine somebody would be like, "Oh man, I just can't wait to get over there and involve myself in that dumpster fire." But
right.
They brought him in there.
They did, and here we are. It's still a den of Satan. It's actually worse than it was.
I haven't been keeping up with it, but go ahead.
Halfway some truth. Jamal couldn't exegete a text if it was on a teleprompter, and he can't do it.
Oh man!
And he went to Duke, liberal as it is, but
right.
It doesn't.
He went to Morehouse too.
He doesn't have the theological credentials. It's just the man's not converted, right? He's not born again, and I can say that with confidence because I can look at his doctrine and I can look at his life. And I can tell by the fruit, I can make such an assertion.
I love it.
Come at me if you want, but the man
catch me outside, Jamal.
Outside, amen.
But amen. April, this was outstanding. Thank you so much. I really appreciate hearing your deconstruction story. All right, and hopefully we can get Jen to put down the guitar and join us the next time as we talk about where we actually landed and where you and your husband and your family go now. I'll talk about where I am. I've been candid about my church adventures and such like that, and where my family goes. We'll hear from Jen as well. The purpose and the point of this to everyone is to just talk about deconstruction. Has been getting a lot of shine in the out there in these social media streets, as you like to call it. All right. It's been getting a lot of shine. And I think that, hey, there's a point where you do need to deconstruct. You do need to take down things that have been attached to the superstructure of the house. Right. If somebody put a janky porch or a bad deck, that should be taken off and a new deck or a new porch in its place. So we're just talking about how April's life, mine, and others had poor things added to the house structure.
The foundation was very weak.
But the foundation was weak as well. So in some instances, maybe you didn't need to take the house down to the foundation and get down to the elementary principles and whatnot. However, we don't need to dig the foundation out and put a hut there, or dig the foundation out and put a 2-story tent there. But rather we recognizing that, hey, the gospel is still real. Christ is still real. I just realized that I didn't know how to read the Bible. I was not under good pastoring. I did not. So we're just recognizing those things need to be removed those need to be deconstructed from. Right. And now we can reconstruct. So the next time we get on, we'll talk about how you reconstructed, how you rebuilt the porch and the deck and all that kind of stuff. And
Amen.
that. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much, April. Yes.
You are welcome. Just don't forget, guys, if you're looking for me, my podcast is called The Standard of Truth, but my channel is April Chapman. So you can just search for me by name. I'm got a lot of great things in store. I'm so grateful for Jason for having me on tonight. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Fun. And anytime you need me, just holla.
I will gladly do that. So everybody, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. We do appreciate you all, and keep your eyes out. We will make sure that we let you know the next time when we're going to, all three of us get together and talk about our reconstruction and such like that. So in the meantime and in between it time, everybody, grace and peace.